know you.
Good afternoon, New Orleans, or wherever you may be. It's 4 o'clock Wednesday, so we must be Baldy and The Blonde. I'm Tom Coates with
Michelle Godin.
Michelle Godin. Together again, we are Baldy and The Blonde. We're here every Wednesday at 4 at WGSO.
Yes, you can follow us on X at Baldy Blonde and go to our Facebook page, Baldy and The Blonde, Facebook group. And we have a YouTube channel where we post our shows commercial free, so you can catch them all there. Yeah, having brought us up to date on that stuff.
All right, what do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about the competence of government.
Okay, well, it'd be a short show. Let's sign off. We are done.
See you later. Gotta go.
If you want to talk about the incompetence of government, and when I say that, basically every government everywhere,
Ever.
we would never really stop talking.
Then we'd be here all day. And, so I guess we have our choice. I think we start with the obvious, most incredible, tragic example is California right now.
It's shocking.
It
and
is
I'm not
shocking.
shocked very easily.
No. Having lived through Katrina and the loss of, 200,000 homes, and I believe that they're at 10,000 in California. We've certainly seen what massive government incompetence looks like, and in our case it was the failure of the federal levees,
Right.
with some participation by failure of state contractors to properly inspect instead of going to lunch. But literally they went to lunch every year during the inspection. But, and building those flood walls, which look like those little walls on the interstate for people who are not from New Orleans. The flood did not happen because of the hurricane, which was a nothing burger. It was a 3 at best. The streets were dry. And then the walls of the levees, there's 2 kinds of levees. There's basically berm levees, which are like little mountains. Those don't break. They work really well. And then there's these things that look like those walls that you see on the interstate to protect from sound. Those slipped and collapsed, and that's how the lake ended up in the streets of New Orleans. So, and that was federal government mismanagement. And, of course, as Tom and I like to talk about, it's not like we have a choice. I was listening a lot in the face of the tragic, horrific handling of the fires in California about the loss of the social contract between the people and the government. And being a minimalist, I guess you'd call it a minarchist libertarian, I support less government possible. And certainly what we live in is the behemoth Leviathan, and we're stuck with that. But I'm hoping that we're moving in a better direction. But come on. What do we get for our taxes, which we pay freely, right, Tom?
Yeah, freely. Wait, give me 1 second. I
Yeah.
just want to go back to one thing you said.
Yes.
That it is true the hurricane itself was a nothing burger in New Orleans, and then
Yeah.
the failure of the levee was what was catastrophic.
Yes.
But it was not a nothing burger on the Mississippi.
Oh, no,
Gulf
no, no.
Coast. That because there are a lot of listeners. We hear
That's
from
true.
people all over the place.
And that was my bad.
and I don't right
lumping those
and we get
things
listeners from
together.
the Mississippi Coast. I don't want them thinking that
We
forgot
do.
that.
In
It
fact,
was-
Tom lives on the
I
Mississippi
do.
Gulf
It was
Coast.
absolutely catastrophic.
Horrific. And that
over
was
there.
the hurricane.
That was the hurricane.
And that was where
yes.
the wall of water, it
Yes.
actually veered, as often happens. Things are headed right to New Orleans, and they take a little bump to the right and end up in, God help them, past Christian Bay St. Louis.
Anyway, I just wanted to.
But you're right.
Throw that
And-
because
and-
we're gonna. I don't want to hear from everybody.
No, you're totally right.
Basically, my neighbors on the Mississippi Gulf Coast where I live,
Right.
because it was absolutely
Yes.
destroyed.
And
because
that
of the
was
hurricane.
a natural disaster where
Yes.
the water came in, and unlike New Orleans, it just comes in and just takes everything back out to sea with
Yeah.
it. Whereas in New Orleans, the way it went down was the water, which, by the way, was brackish water, which is salt and fresh, which has some bearing on the California situation, sat in the city until it could get it all out, which took 6 to 8 weeks for that to happen. So our 200,000 properties sat in salt water. So did our oak trees. And so I know that a lot of us have watched the California fires, and you can literally see the house burning with the ocean lapping at the shore. And we wonder, why don't they stick a hose in the ocean and use it on the houses? And the answer I've heard from reading the LA Times, et cetera, is that, well, we don't want to put salt on the vegetation. And I'm like, well, we
don't want to put water on the fire.
right. What?
It might put it out.
Might put it out. So it's just crazy, but it's really shocking, and the coverage of it's bizarre. The main thing that I find to be incredible was that there was just no preparation for it, and they knew it was coming. It was like a hurricane. They know, that it's coming. So we always take action,
they
and we do it very well, I might add. We evacuate. So
Right. They definitely knew that the winds were going to kick up.
Santa Ana winds.
Right. They know for a fact that the fires are you're always at risk for fires.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get the same warning you get with a hurricane, but you know it's coming.
It's dry.
Or you're always at risk for it starting up.
Yes. And
So when
people are supposed to keep their brush cut.
the most important thing to do if you suspect a fire is about to start is go to Ghana.
That's right.
Because how can you be held accountable if you're 7,000 miles away? So that's what I would do. And coincidentally, that is what the mayor of LA did.
Coincidentally, she knew.
That was a good move.
She a really great move.
If you're a bureaucrat, and I'm speaking from a bureaucrat's perspective.
Yeah,
if you're
of course.
a bureaucrat trying to avoid accountability, go far, far away.
Get thee to Ghana.
Right, and she did.
And she did.
Yes.
And her answer when she got back was, non-existent. She was confronted by an actual reporter, which of course means they were not an American, a guy
Right.
from Sky News who kept asking her, "Do you feel bad about not
She
being
just
here?"
ignored him.
And it actually sort of turned out, I did not know this, and we're going to play some clips from I think probably one of the greatest reporters in the U.S. right now, Michael Schellenberger, former member of the left, as a lot of my favorite people are, and he goes through kind of the steps of what would have happened had she stayed. Apparently, the way the fire system works in California, it's not a unified deal. They have all these different little groups, and the mayor has to issue commands to make things happen. It's really bizarre. I didn't know that. And at least according to his reporting, she wasn't there to do it. So that was just another thing that went wrong, along with the reservoir right next to the Pacific Palisades, which had 112 million gallons, was non-operational for at least a year, as best I could figure.
Bone dry.
112 million gallons. So I did see in the LA Times they were trying to downplay that, of course, because a lot of people's political futures are certainly looking bleak.
Well, if it's your job protect the people and you don't, of course you're going to downplay it.
Yeah. And his answer was, they're like, well, it's not really, it would have helped, of course, but, I'd have to actually do the calculations to see what kind of difference it would have made. Well, a real reporter would then say, well, I'll just wait. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's do that calculation.
Let's divide the 10,000 houses by 112 million gallons.
Well, the other way around, but okay.
So you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Tom's the math guy, not me.
Yeah.
I'm concepts. All concepts. That's what calculators are for. Can you figure that out?
Yeah, but you still have to
How
put
many
it in the
gallons?
correct order. I'm not doing that. No, I'm not
Okay.
doing that.
Well, anyway,
a lot.
it's a lot
There's
of
a lot of
gallons.
water.
Yeah.
A lot of water would have helped a lot.
Yeah, instead they were, and it also affects the pressure because it was high up, and it would put the pressure all the way through the system onto the fire hydrants, which were dry. What? So you literally had, and also you'll hear Schellenberger talk about it, but he says, if you were really, you knew it was coming, you should have had helicopters up, should have had people on the lookout for fires, and had fire trucks stationed in these hilly, small neighborhoods like the Palisades because it's hard to get in and out.
Prepositioned, in other words.
Prepositioned, that's the
Which
word.
is not paranoia because they know
It's on the way.
they know a fire is always at risk for starting. So have a fire watch ready to roll.
Yeah.
Always on the lookout. Why not?
Should we play? We have about a minute and...
Yeah, we got time. What you want to hear?
Let's play Schellenberger. Not the climate change one, the other one.
Okay, here we go. I got it right here.
All right.
Hang on.
This is not forest fire.
This is interview with Tucker Carlson,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
okay.
correct,
So if
yeah.
you hear a second voice, that's Tucker Carlson.
Yes.
These are not forest fires, and that doesn't mean that you're doomed to them, but it's not the same problem that we get in the Sierras. So they're ignition driven and they're obviously wind driven, but there's nothing unusual. I just interviewed an environmental forest scientist about this. There's nothing unusual about this. I mean, it is somewhat unusual to get, you have a dry period and then the Santa Ana winds in January, but it's not like that never happens. The important thing to know is that the National Weather Service put out a fire warning on January 2nd. And a local weatherman actually forecasted on January 1st. They said we're headed towards a super dangerous moment. The next day, the National Weather Service Los Angeles held a briefing to underscore that point. The day after that, the mayor flew to Ghana.
There you go. She's a Ghana Pacana. I got to go. There's fires coming.
Ghana for Ghana.
Don't bother me. I'll be in Ghana. I mean,
what a great move.
I've been talking about this stuff for 20, 30
Social
years.
contract, Tom.
It's just governments are catastrophic. They do not provide what they say they're going to provide.
They're trying to kill us, it seems.
And your average Joe on the street, when they hear me say something like this, is like, well, we need the government for infrastructure like roads, bridges, fire, police. Really, we'll talk about more of that later, but we know what's going on with they do not provide any fire protection. Anyway, Michelle, you got to get us out of here. Take us to this break.
All right. We'll be back in a few minutes to continue discussing the incompetence of government here on Baldy and the Blonde. BaldyandTheBlonde.com, at Baldy Blonde on X. See you on the flip side. Welcome back. This is Baldy and the Blonde. I understand you might have heard us chatting over the hot mics.
I have no idea what I said.
I don't either.
I don't think I've said anything X-rated, which would be
not our fault. It's Kobe's fault. So
I don't have that switch. I don't know.
Anyway, Tom's wife called us over the break and said that she could hear us talking over the commercials. So I guess y'all heard us planning how we were going to get together to do the presentation on the video, which we probably didn't explain what we were doing. But I'll take this opportunity to explain it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tom has been working diligently on the FBI video and other information regarding the terror guy, Mr. Terrorist, Mr. Jabbar, and has done a really good job of it. And the only way we can do it, obviously, it's not a thing you do on radio. So we're going to do a podcast of it, and we were just boringly talking about how we could get together to do it. But sometime in the next few days, we hope to release a video on baldyandtheblonde.com and also on the Facebook page showing you what we think are some really strange things with the video. Now, look, part of the problem is, and it's in the context of what we're talking about with regard to the fire mismanagement by the California government at the expense of the poor citizens who certainly don't have, most of them, the ability to fight a fire, although I do note that there was a doctor who kept his house and all of those on his street from burning by fighting the fire with his son and one friend for 3 days. But anyway, that's a can-do, kick-ass American man right there. So anyway, in the general concept of government suck, we're going to see that it's almost always a cover-up, a punt to the FBI, or something else that then shrouds everything in secrecy, and we don't know what's going on. And that goes all the way back to 61 years ago. Who knows what happened to President Kennedy? But most of America does not believe the official story.
Right, and here we are still no information.
And they work for us.
Yeah.
It's infuriating.
Well, again, they really don't, but they say they
do.
Right,
they say, and they get their fees from us at the point of a gun, because go ahead and just try not to pay your taxes.
That's right.
And
or try to fix your own street. Try to build your own bridge. There's bridges over
Burlington.
Highway 90. Right.
Talk about that.
They've been closed. There's 4 bridges been closed since May of 22, and they're saying at best, and even I don't believe that they'll do it, will be done sometime in 2028. There's your government
at work. Yep.
Saying, because full disclosure, I really am an anarchist, and a lot of people will hear that and they think, well, what does that mean? He's for chaos, and no, anarchy does not mean chaos.
No,
that word has been bastardized.
It has.
They try to make it mean chaos. It doesn't mean that at all. It means a peaceful way to organize society without government.
Yes.
And because
but Tom, how will we have roads? How
exactly.
Will we have fire protection?
I think we could figure
police.
We could figure out how to lay a patch of tar for roads, right? But they won't let us. They won't let us fix the bridges. Instead, they'll say, "Oh, how about this? We'll just close them for 6 years or more."
And then they'll find some friends and get a study done for a couple of $1 million, for which they could have fixed the bridge.
And those bridges are an evacuation route for a lot of people.
That's right.
So in other words, here's where I'm going with that. So when we complain about putting incompetent people or focusing on anything other than putting the best person into these positions, say in LA.
Right.
It sounds like you're just whining for no reason, and then this strikes and people die. And
yes.
Scores of billions of dollars of damage. So it's not for no reason we're complaining. Then you look at these 4 bridges going to the Mississippi coast out of New Orleans East. we're not complaining because we want a bridge. It's because there's going to be a time, potentially, that's needed for an evacuation, and it won't be, and people die.
That's it.
And even then, they won't get it.
And
governments don't get it. They don't care. They're bureaucrats, unaccountable to anybody. Their job is to just take our money and then never be accountable for anything and never provide the service you need. And you won't find out if they're providing emergency service until the emergency hits. And then they may or may not. And if they don't, they still stay in office.
And I mean, the 1,300 people that died in New Orleans alone, in Katrina, that's on the government. Because those people, they should have evacuated. But no, the reason that they were supposed to evacuate was that it was supposed to be a 5 and it was supposed to be a direct hit. Neither of those things happened. And even with those things, the risk that you were preventing by evacuating was not the collapse of the levees.
Yeah, right.
It was, okay, the water might come over the levees, which is quite different than a collapse which allowed the entire lake to fill up the city. So you can't blame the victims. I don't blame the victims in California. I don't blame the victims in New Orleans. It's the government. However, I will say this, that in California, they vote for this Karen Bass is literally a fan of Fidel Castro, a murderous butcher of humans who she praised. She's a communist. And that's who they voted for when the guy who ran against her was also a Democrat, but he was a builder. And he understood fire and fire protection. And I do not believe this would be happening had he been elected.
I think you're probably right. I can't disagree with you.
So, I mean, it's just always the same thing. So, anyway.
Okay, so to go back to what you were talking about, the project that we're working on.
Right.
It's basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the FBI's own data and information that they've made public and showing you why it shows the opposite of what the FBI says with its words that it shows. In other words, they give you the information and then say,
this is what it means.
Then they say, and he acted alone. Figuring you won't look at it critically, but I can't help myself. I look at things minute by second by second.
All right, I want you to be quiet just for 1 second because you said it really fast, and I think what you're saying is that they want you to believe he acted alone.
Yes.
You said those words really
Well, I'm sorry.
fast.
Well, that's their official narrative right now.
But
they say he acted alone, but the data and information and evidence that they themselves produce shows otherwise.
And it could be, we have to say this, it could be that they're obviously not releasing all the info because one of the things you've uncovered is lots of dead time that we can't account for.
Tons of dead time.
And you cannot tell me that the quarter, they don't have video of every second of this guy.
You can't hang out on the French Quarter between Canal and around Lafitte's
Blacksmith.
bar, right, down by, it's like on St. Philip. There's
cameras everywhere.
There's cameras everywhere.
And yet they have gaps with this guy.
That go for 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
One of them is like, maybe there's another one that's like 55.
So where is that information and why aren't we being updated on a daily basis? I'm sick of, first of all, why is the FBI involved in this case?
That's another question. Why is this not
come on
an
day
OPD?
one and, shove the Kirkpatrick to the side. Here comes Nose Ring, special agent, and,
Special Agent Nose Ring. Wow.
I just want y'all to know that every single FBI agent is called special agent.
Like, for real.
They're
They
not
really are.
special. That's their title, so that the juries think they're special. But anyway, special agent gets up and says, this is not a terrorist event. And the FBI is taking over. Then why? Because murder is a vehicular homicide, and murder is a state crime. It is not a federal crime.
It makes no sense.
So unless it is a terrorist event, they have no business being involved in the case. And all they ever do is put a shroud of secrecy over everything they do.
Here's the thing.
So we'll hear nothing.
Even if it was a terrorist event, there were still state crimes committed.
There were.
Right? It's not a felony to drive on the sidewalk, for example. Okay. So why is NOPD not involved? This is just another breakdown of the things that governments really say they're going to, the very basic things: roads, bridges, police, fire. Here we are again. Anyway, this is Tom Coates, Michelle Godin. Together we are Baldy and The Blonde. We will be back after this break.
Welcome back to Baldy and the Blonde. I'm Michelle Godin with Tom Coates. We are here every Wednesday from 4 to 5, and you can listen to our show commercial-free at baldyandtheblonde.com. All of our shows are there, all archived. And I guess we're up to about 12 shows now. I don't know. But anyway, what I was saying before the break, Tom and I were discussing the fact that he's been working really hard on the FBI publicly produced film regarding the Jabbar terrorist attack in the quarter. And there's quite a few things that really I haven't heard anyone else talk about that I think are really weird and interesting. And I'll just say one of them. There's a place where he's standing there with the cooler, and he looks completely befuddled, like he doesn't know what he's doing. And it's that blue cooler that, I don't know if it's blue, but it's got a handle.
The one with wheels.
The one with the wheels. It looks like he can't really make the wheels turn correctly. I don't know, like it's heavy, things are off balance. But the weirdest thing is after he's looking at his phone, like trying to step away from it, it looks like he's talking or texting with someone. And then he stops, turns around, looks up. I think he looks up. I'm not sure Tom and I agree on that. But he looks.
This is not
the same spot. But anyway.
Not where he waves if you're going there.
I'm going to the wave.
It's not where he waves.
He waves a half a block away.
Right.
Regardless, there's a place where he waves, like he's waving at someone.
Well, but they are two separate things.
They are.
And
we'll explain it on the thing.
But what's important is...
That's why it's impossible to do right now. I'm just setting this up as there's some interesting things that we can't cover on a radio show because it's visual. So we're going to do a visual, I guess you call it a podcast or whatever we want to call it, but it's going to be posted on Baldy and the Blonde as a little video.
Yeah, just a
PowerPoint presentation where it takes you through the film and we narrate what's going on.
But just to be clear, those two things you're talking about, they're totally separate things, and both, just each one by itself
is weird.
Is extremely weird.
Yeah.
Put them together with other extremely weird things, it's incontrovertible what you're seeing.
Who's waving on Bourbon Street standing next to a bomb? I mean, it's bizarre.
Someone who's trying to be discreet, right?
No, and it looks like he's trying to tell his boss or somebody.
He totally looks.
Look where I am. It's right here.
Yeah, you'll see on the video. He
weird.
Totally looks like he's working under someone's direction.
And then Tom also pointed out, does he look like the boss man to you, Tom?
No, he does not. He looks like he's answering to somebody.
Yeah.
You'll see it on the video.
Yeah. I just want to set it up a little bit so people know. And also then just the missing gaps.
But I've literally gone down into the quarter and I've walked the route that I know he walked.
Yes.
And I covered every area that I knew he was, and it's pretty obvious to me that whatever he did with those coolers, he didn't do it alone.
No, because there's no explanation from the videos. There's no explanation as to where he got the coolers from. They're in the back of the car. He goes back to supposedly the area of the car several times, and you see him return without the coolers.
Without the coolers. And then he shows up on Bourbon with the cooler.
Yeah. So how'd that happen? We don't know. And we're not pretending we know. Right?
No, exactly. We have no idea. We only have questions, and the reason we have questions is because the government bureaucrats aren't giving us the answers. And again, that's the theme of the show. For things as basic as fire, bridges, roads, police. Completely inept, or in some cases covering things up, or confusing us, obfuscating. I don't know what's going on. I just know when they say he acted alone within 24 hours or 36 hours of saying he acted alone, and then they show us what they give us the documentation and the videos and the photos that show otherwise. But then their conclusion is he acted alone. They're going to fool a lot of people that they figure, okay, well, the FBI put out a timeline. They're not going to say he acted alone if it's obvious by their own timeline that he didn't, so they don't look. Well, I looked.
Yeah, Tom looked.
They're not telling us the truth.
Yeah, I mean, listen, all we're doing is raising questions. There may be answers to them, and maybe somebody's sitting on a bunch of video that we don't have. But based on the official story, there's nothing but questions.
Here's what the thing is. We don't know that he had accomplices. We don't. We know it looks like it. We also know, though, that the story they're telling us about how he went to the truck to get his coolers plural, and then took him back down to Bourbon, that's not true.
It's not true.
Their own video shows that.
And like I said, unless they're sitting on video that they're not sharing, that has a different story, because what we're seeing does nothing but raise more questions, and certainly questions the official position, which is also weird too, because we know the guy went to Egypt, and we know that in December, Sarah Adams, who is a former CIA agent, made got a whole lot of press coverage for predicting 2025 as being ISIS Al Qaeda attacks in the U.S. Well, this guy has an ISIS flag, has been to Egypt where she says the head of Al Qaeda ISIS is located, and she thought that was very significant.
Oh, but how does the news describe this guy as a?
I was just pulling that up.
Yeah,
Tom.
they don't say anything about ISIS, do they?
No, I'm going to read you, let's see. This is a story by Sam Carlin and Marco Cardellano of NOLA.com. FBI, Bourbon Street attacker researched New Orleans shootings before ramming. This is how they describe him. The Army veteran who killed 14 and injured dozens more on Bourbon Street, searched online, blah, blah, blah.
The Army
veteran. How about
anything
the
else?
ISIS follower?
Yeah. How about that?
I mean, what? What is that? Because they want to stick to the narrative, being that I'm sure they're lefties like all the press, that the number one threat in America is domestic terrorism.
Well,
this guy's an ISIS follower.
Okay, on one
he's got
hand,
a flag.
Right. On one hand, they say he acted alone. On the other, he's got the ISIS flag. Right. How many ISIS followers act alone? Is that a thing? I don't even know if that's a
especially
thing.
he's just gone to Egypt for 13 days in the summer.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Well, they call us conspiracy theorists. They're lone wolf theorists. That's just so improbable here.
It's true.
Now, if all I knew was just the narrative, in other words, I didn't see anything. Somebody just told me what happened. I would think, well, that guy probably didn't act alone.
No.
But it's just a theory. It's like, yeah, that's my theory. He did not act alone.
Right.
When I see the video evidence, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's just
This guy's,
especially the
he's
points
in communication
that you
with somebody. He's answering to somebody. He's waving at somebody.
Yeah, it sure looks like it. And then
It's like,
you
come
add
on.
his travel history.
I know what my eyes tell me.
And supposedly he has a bomb with a substance. Now, I have not found a really good source on this, but I heard it on, I forget which newscast, but that supposedly the substance in his homemade bombs is a substance not available in the U.S. Did you hear that?
Well, yes, they said it's never been used in a terror attack in the U.S. or Europe, but then also they did not say what the explosive was.
I wonder if it's
They just
from
said it's never
Egypt.
been used.
Or perhaps Ontario, because he did also go to this broke guy who's unemployed. Meanwhile, has traveled to Egypt.
Yeah, he has no
which-
money, but he goes to
Yeah.
Egypt for 2 weeks.
Yes, 2 weeks
In
in
fact,
Egypt, comes back, doesn't fly from Egypt to Canada. No, goes home, and then takes another trip a few days later.
Because if that was a thing, every spring breaker college kid who's broke would just go to Egypt.
Egypt, yeah, I'm going to go to Egypt.
Because it's easy. Anybody can do it.
Cheap and easy, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, it's just, look, I feel like at least there's some semblance of people going, I've had enough of the government incompetence. And, now they're starting to get people murdered, killed, and they have for many years.
Right. Now it's really starting to show. And you just wait until, because for years, for decades, we complain about the roads in New Orleans. But it's even kind of a joke.
Yeah.
Until one day, somehow a giant sinkhole swallows a bus full of first graders.
Yeah.
And now it's world news.
There you go.
And it's just one small thing after another that leads up to a giant tragedy
Right.
that could, right?
Right.
And
Like-
if that sounds like hyperbole, well, that's what happened with the levee. That's what's happening with the fires.
And that's what happened on New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
like-
correct.
like-
Good point. Yes.
There's lawsuits out there. I'm a lawyer. I have tried to get a copy of it, but I didn't get around to it. But anyway, I know that from reading the press coverage that there were safety recommendations that were not followed. And as bad as like the bollards that they were replacing with lower safety capacity than the ones that weren't up and functioning on New Year's Eve. And I mean, we're going to leave here and pass the intersection of Bourbon and Canal, because that's the studio is right down the street. And now it's blocked. You can't possibly get down that street.
Right.
But it wasn't that night. And, I do think that NOPD acquitted themselves well in their response, and I would rather they be investigating than the FBI.
Absolutely.
Because we would hear what's going on, because they're local and accountable to us.
And they
risk their lives.
They should be in charge.
They should.
There's no reason they should not be in charge here.
And, we have a Homeland Security boss here, God only knows what he gets paid. It was really his job to make sure that the quarter was safe.
Yeah, right.
So I don't hold NOPD at fault for any. They're not safety experts.
Right.
They're cops.
No, you're right.
And they're brave cops. And we all saw the video of them running to the bullets.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So this is no criticism of them, but I am strongly criticizing our mayor, the mayor Karen Bass of L.A., the governor of California, and anybody who wants to say that, oh, it's climate change causing the California problems. We have a response for that coming back on the other side of the break. I don't guess we have time. Maybe we do.
Nah, we'll
No,
put that off.
we'll put it on the other side.
I'm in charge of the sound, but you can't make
I
me.
don't know.
I can do it only if I want to.
That's right.
But all these things we're talking about, that's not even to mention the Hard Rock.
Yeah, Hard Rock falls down.
So and ended up in death.
In death.
Again, a series of small things that are overlooked. Somebody looks the other way, or
It's the collapse of civilization, one step at a time.
Just slowly but surely, things led up to a collapse. I mean, when has that ever happened in the last 100 years in America? Has that? I've never heard of that.
And we've had buildings collapsing right and left.
And it ends up in somebody dying. All these things that government is supposed to do, simple, basic. I shouldn't say simple,
stuff.
but basic. It's basic things that our money that they take from us by force or threat of force, and then they don't deliver the goods.
And not only that, but they waste their time doing things that the government has no business doing, trying to socially engineer, DEI, all this stuff that has nothing to do with their responsibilities.
Right.
Listen, if you've got everything covered and the roads are perfect and the bridges work, okay.
Yeah,
And you want to
exactly.
go off into some social experiment, maybe. Anyway, this is Baldy and the Blonde. We will be back after the break. I'm Michelle Godin along with Tom Coates at Baldy Blonde on X. Welcome back to Baldy and the Blonde. I'm Michelle Godin along with Tom Coates here every Thursday. I'm sorry, Wednesday.
What is that?
What is wrong with me?
I leaped to the mic to correct you, but you got it.
Every
Yes.
Wednesday from 4 to 5, and all of our shows are available
What is
without
wrong with
commercials.
you?
BaldyandTheBlonde.com. I'm just acting like a government official, getting it all
Oh,
wrong.
yeah, getting it all
and-
wrong.
And being incompetent. There you go.
I'll edit it out. I'll be part of the cover-up.
And look, I just want to mention one more something that's come out since our last show. In the endless cover-up by the FBI, they released a new video of the pipe bomber on January 6th. You know, allegedly there was a pipe bomb.
So-called pipe bomber.
Allegedly, even though they let kids walk by, the FBI did nothing to stop it. Anyway, they got the guy putting the pipe bomb in place, but his eyes are blurred out. And also the government had said, oh, we can't get his phone records, even though they have every grandmother from Kalamazoo. Because the phone records were damaged, and the phone companies have all come out since Trump was elected to say, there's nothing wrong with the records. Anyway, that's just more of the same. And the reason, I just recommend you read Julie Kelly or Darren Beatty on the topic of the J6 pipe bomber. Those two should have Pulitzer Prizes in a fair world.
Well, it really is true. If the pipe bomb thing was legit,
You'd have never heard the end of it.
You would be hearing about that for 50 years. I'm
Yeah.
not kidding.
Because Kamala Harris was the victim of an alleged
And a lot of people
assassination.
A lot of people probably have never even heard of the pipe bomb.
Maybe not.
The
Because
so-called pipe bomb.
the J6 committee didn't
Is-
address it. So
is-
something's wrong is all I'm saying, right? Big
Yeah.
time. So the theory is, just to not leave you hanging, the theory among those who investigate this is that part of the J6 Fedsurrection by people who wanted the J6 hearings not to happen because the evidence of the chicanery in the election would not have been brought forth. Now, whether it was sufficient to overturn an election is different, but the evidence was going to come forward that day. Because of the riot, it didn't. The other theory is that the pipe bomb was Plan B.
In case the
Fedsurrection
so-called
didn't
insurrection
happen.
didn't happen. Okay.
Well, the feds were shooting the peaceful crowd with
Yeah.
plastic bullets and putting holes in people's faces, and of course they got a response.
Yeah.
Was it appropriate? No, not in all cases, but nonetheless. Anyway, moving on.
All right, you want to introduce this soundbite?
No, you are, aren't you?
No.
Which
this
one is this? Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is.
And is this Thursday?
It is
no,
Thursday. If it's Thursday, this must be Belgium.
This is Michael. This is your boy. This is a clip you sent me,
This
and
is
I don't
it.
know anything
all right,
about
here we go.
it.
So here, for all of you who have heard, I'm sure, MSNBC trying to whine about how the California fires are due to climate change. Again, our man of the left, Michael Schellenberger, who I highly recommend you follow as an excellent reporter, Anyway, this is he lives in California, and he's a great reporter, and this is his comment to Tucker Carlson about that.
I think he's asked, was it due to climate change?
Was it due to
Okay,
climate change?
Did climate change play a role? Was this caused by climate change?
No, it's not caused by climate change. I mean, certainly warmer weathers, all else being equal, makes the wood drier.
Yes.
But there is no change in precipitation. Since 1877, they've kept very good records of rainfall, annual rainfall in the Los Angeles basin, and it's unchanged. There's wet years and dry years. You know, you look at it. I just posted it on X. It's just people can go look at it. It's from the Almanac. No change in precipitation at all in Los Angeles. There have been Santa Ana winds in January many times in the past. And by the way, this is a dry year now, but the last 2 years were very heavy rains.
Pretty open and shut case.
Pretty open and shut.
It's been a wet season the last
Yeah.
couple of years. And
I mean,
how climate change makes things now it starts forest fires?
you know when it's hot here.
Or
things
not even
combust.
forest fires, but city fires? I
Haven't
guess.
you noticed that when it's hot in New Orleans, things just combust?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're always dodging the flames coming up out of the holes in the sidewalks.
Exactly.
Which,
so ridiculous.
which are numerous.
I mean, but again, that's just more, shade to be thrown at the regular folks in favor of, covering up for the government. Karen Bass, Fidelista lover, and she is a nihilist, and she does not believe. I think that the rich people's houses in the Pacific Palisades deserve to stand. And that's all part of Schellenberger's theory, and he's,
well, I haven't heard that
It's
one.
worth listening to that
All right,
interview.
maybe I'll do that.
Tucker Carlson with Michael Schellenberger.
All right, we have one more sound clip.
We do. And what do you want to say about this one, Tom?
Oh, well, okay. I honestly, this is Pam
Bondi.
Pam Bondi.
Bond, James Bond.
So, honestly, I don't know what she's nominated for.
She took the place of Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz was for AG. She was the AG of Florida. She's a really kick-ass prosecutor.
I have to say also,
Wait. Whoa.
I didn't mean to start it.
Whoa.
That
Hold
one,
on there, buddy.
That one is my fault.
Yeah, well, every now and then. All right. So anyway, she's in Congress and she's being grilled in her confirmation hearings, and I really like this clip. What do you have to say about it?
Well, I like it. This is the way that bureaucrats need to be talked to.
This is exactly.
Who's the guy questioning her?
It's Blumenthal.
Blumenthal.
Senator Dick Blumenthal.
Is he? Oh, he's a dick.
He's literally a dick. Blumenthal.
Okay. So
Yes.
okay. So the guy who's questioning her is a dick, right?
As in Richard, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good to know. I thought maybe it was some.
I have to say also, really troubled, deeply disturbed by some of your responses and non-responses to the question that you've been asked today. You have to be able to say that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. You dodged that question when you were asked directly by Senator Durbin. You have to be able to say that January 6th insurrectionists who committed violence shouldn't be pardoned.
You said that I have to sit up here and say these things. No, I don't. I sit up here and speak the truth. I'm not going to sit up here and say anything that I need to say to get confirmed by this body. I don't have to say anything. I will answer the questions to the best of my ability.
There you go. That's the
There
way
you
you
go.
back down a bureaucrat.
That's it.
Back down a dick.
And did you notice that Dick Blumenthal was quoting Dick Durbin? 'Cause
All right then.
He didn't like how Pam didn't. Dick Durbin tried to get her to say that the election wasn't
Yeah,
stolen.
it's just you have to say this. You have to
She's
say
like,
that.
I don't have to say anything,
I
bro.
don't have to.
And that's the way you talk to a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
And that's the way we should talk to them, because they are our servants, public
Yeah,
servants.
you know the best way to talk to a bureaucrat is when they're on the other side of the glass in prison. You're talking to them through the phone. That's how you
hoping-
really should talk to some of these
I'm
bureaucrats.
hoping we see some of that happening. So anyway, y'all, I want you to please keep an eye out for our Facebook page and or go to baldyandtheblonde.com, where we are going to post, hopefully by this weekend, Tom's timeline and an explanation of it. It's going to be a PowerPoint presentation of the videos that we have available, and we will have him narrate it, and I may chime in, but it's his baby, and it's really, really, really interesting.
Well, let me throw this out.
Yeah.
Now, probably most of our listeners are from New Orleans area, at least, and have been to the Quarter 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But we'll have some listeners that
Never been.
don't. This guy parked, there you have us believe that he
Here we go.
parked a 20-foot long truck. I looked up the specs. It's 20 feet long. In the French Quarter on one of the busiest nights of the year, got parking within like
2 minutes.
like a minute. Within
A minute.
And I've
Yeah.
walked down there. There's only a few spots you could, like literally a few spots, like 3 or 4 places
On that whole block.
On that, you could have done that. So he's either the luckiest guy in the world, but if I'm really investigating that, I would look seriously to see did he have an accomplice to help him get parked. Maybe somebody was holding the spot. And I know this sounds like it's a joke, but that's
There's
serious.
nowhere to park there.
You cannot
It's
park
New
in there.
Year's Eve in the French Quarter. There's just no way.
If I
And
was
he-
going down there on a regular Saturday night, I wouldn't try that. Anyway,
right.
you take us out of here.
All right, so this is Baldy and the Blonde. Pay attention. We are coming out with a fascinating timeline on the French Quarter Terrace. See you soon.